Hello friends and welcome to another video lesson from DBOS Talks. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click subscribe and click the bell so that you can be notified of new uploads. This is the first video in a playlist called Beginner Office Skills, and in this series we will be touching on certain office skills that will hopefully fill in the gaps in otherwise what we already have in our tool belt right now. So typically, even if you're a fresh graduate, even if you have you probably have some experience working in the office, it is expected that you already probably have some experience using the Microsoft Office suite, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and you are decently familiar with Windows OS as such. But this series, this playlist, is intended to fill in those gaps that will, from time to time, come, and you will have to know certain things that are otherwise not part of the Office suite. And yeah, okay, so in this first video, we'll be learning about the concept of zipping and unzipping a file or files. First, what is zipping a file? In Windows OS, when you have a zipped file, it will typically have an extension of zip. If you see here, this is File Explorer. If you have a text file, the extension is txt. If you have an image file, then you probably have JPEG, JPG, or GIF, or TIFF, or what else? So these are the popular ones. Yeah, bitmap, BMP. But when it comes to a zip file, it will have an extension of zip. Okay, so first let's ask ourselves, what is the purpose of zipping a file? So we zip a file, it will serve a few purposes, but the main one is to decrease the file size by compressing it. So once you decrease the file size, that file is in a better position to be attached to an email because the file has become smaller. There will be cases where in corporate settings, there's a limit to a file attachment to an email, maybe 5 MB, 10 MB, depends on the company. So zipping a file will help to reduce the file size before you can attach it. Okay, so that's zipping a file. And since there's a zipping process, once the recipient receives that attachment in the email, that recipient can unzip or has to unzip a file. Otherwise, it will not be readable. Okay, so let's start. To zip a file in Windows 10, even in Windows 11, you don't need to download or install an application to do that. Although there are applications to do that with their own bells and whistles, additional features. But Windows 10 itself already has a built-in capability or feature for zipping and unzipping files in the Windows environment. So let's start with zipping one file. Okay, look at this file I'm pointing at called some text file, which has an extension of txt. Now I want to zip this file. Let's say your boss told you zip this file. Let's just say you haven't done this before, so this is your chance to learn this. So to zip one file, you click on the file, which we've already done, and then you right click, and then you click on send to in the context menu. This is called context menu. And then you click on compressed zipped folder. Once you do that, you get to this and you have the option to either accept the default file name, which is exactly the same as the file name of your file, or you can rename it if you want to. Okay, in my case, I will just accept the default and enter. So now a zipped file has been created. If I expand the file type here, I will see that the file type is described as compressed zipped folder. The other thing you have to notice is that if you can compare the original file with the compressed one, there's a considerable decrease in file size. The original file is 9 kilobytes and 9 KB, but the zipped file, after what we did, is now only 1 kilobyte, 1000 bytes. Okay, so that is, you see the effect of zipping a file. And this is what I mentioned earlier, that one of the, in fact, the main purpose of zipping a file is to reduce its file size for whatever purpose, like attaching it to an email and so forth, or sharing it to others. Okay, so we have zipped one file. Now let's do another example. Let's try zipping multiple files. So it doesn't matter if it's 2 or 20. We can start with this. I will show you the same thing. If I will zip 2 files, it will be the same procedure that you'll follow if you want to zip 50 files, 30 files. So to zip multiple files, what you need to do is to select those multiple files with your mouse. Okay. Okay, I click on this and then shift, select the other one. Or if there are many files, I can just do a Control A. After selecting the files that you want to zip, the same thing you will be doing is to right click on the highlighted files, and then you click on send to. Okay, let me do this again. You don't see this. It's at the bottom. Never mind. Just remember that in the context menu, I am clicking on send to, and then compressed zipped folder. Again, you will be presented with a default file name, which is the same as that of one of the files you have selected. Okay, let me just rename it so you will see the effect. I'll call it 2 files. Okay, so now we have zipped those 2 files and put them in one zip file, which I renamed as 2_ files. Again, you will look at the file type. It is compressed zipped folder. And then the other thing we have to look at is the file size. If you will look at these 2 original files, I will highlight them, and then you do a mental computation of totaling the file sizes of these 2. This is 138 KB plus 9, that's 147 KB, right? So by right, the total should be 147 kilobytes. But since we have zipped it or compressed the files, then it is only 108 kilobytes. Okay, so the first thing we did was to zip one file. The next thing we did was to zip multiple files. Now, the next thing you will do now is to view a zip file without unzipping. Remember, to view a zip file without unzipping. Okay, don't be confused with the terminologies. When you say zip, it's the same as compressing a file. Unzip is the same as uncompressing a file. Okay, so what we will do now is to view a zip file. Here is your zip file, but we wanted to view its contents to make sure it has the files that we have zipped prior to an action like attaching it to an email or sharing it via Google Drive, things like that. Okay, so to view, what you do is just double click on that zip file. Okay, once you double click the zip file, you will see the contents of the zip file. So if you look here, the 2 files here is the file name of the zip file, and below it, it shows the contents of that zip file, which are these 2 files we have zipped earlier. Okay, that is viewing a zip file without unzipping. Now, the next thing we will learn is how to unzip a file. So now we have a zip file in front of us, which is this one. The icon is quite obvious. It's a folder with a zipper in it. So that's a zip file. We want to unzip this file now. Let's just say I have zipped this file, attached it to an email, and sent it to somebody. Now that somebody received the email, downloaded the zip file, and now wants to unzip the file for his own use. So what he will do is he will right click on the zip file and then click on send. No, extract all. Okay, no confusion there. Right click on the zip file, extract all. Once you do that, the dialog will show you this is the default behavior. You can even forget about worrying about where it will be. By default, it will be extracted or unzipped or uncompressed in this same location. Okay, but it will create a folder with the same file name as the zip file. Okay, that's the default behavior if you will not do anything. Remember, this is a zip file. I want to unzip it, right click, extract all. By default, if I click on this extract button, what will happen is that this zip folder will be unzipped to a newly created folder with the same file name as this zip file. Okay, let me do that now. I click on extract and it will do its thing. Okay, so you can see that it has created a folder with exactly the same name as the zip file. But if you go inside this folder, it will contain the two files which we have compressed or zipped earlier, right? It's here. Okay. Okay, so that's it. We have seen a couple of things in this demonstration. First is we have understand, we've commented on it. We heard about the concept of zipping and zipping, what it is, what's the purpose of it. Next is we saw how to zip one file. And then next is we saw how to zip multiple files. Then the next is we learned how to view a zipped file without unzipping, just view. And finally, we'll learn how to unzip a file. Okay, so again, zipping a file, the purpose of that mainly is to reduce the file size, to make it more portable. It will facilitate attaching it to an email, sharing it to multiple people because of the reduction in the file size. Okay, I hope something has been learned here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I do suggest you click subscribe. And I'll be seeing you soon in the next video. Thank you.